So, I mean, obviously there's so many different places we can start, but I think for you, as you are where you are in your stage of your career, are there specific things from your career that have really persisted longer than you had anticipated? Something that really has caught people's imagination that at the time you had no way of realizing.
Well, I started acting at 7, so I don't think I even knew what it meant for something to stand the test of time or anything like that. So I think almost everything I've done that has been sort of is carried on and over the decades has really been surprising for me. I mean, those are the obvious ones, like Wednesday and Casper and all those things. You know, like anyone
So, I mean, you mentioned Wednesday. There are a couple roles that you've gone back to in your career and played multiple times. I mean, is there one that, I mean, you wouldn't actually have to go back and do that role again, but is there one that came at a specific point in your career that you really enjoyed, or something that you would be eager to like try and recapture from that same spirit again?
I loved almost everything I've done. I certainly love the characters that I played. And I love that people that they've sort of become iconic. I mean, I hate to say iconic because it seems like, but if they have kind of become this sort of iconic thing and everything I love. And I think if anything, I love to create more characters like that.
You had the opportunity to work in TV, in film, and a bunch of other mediums. Are there aspects of ones that you prefer or find yourself getting drawn back to?
I prefer filmmaking. There's less committee involved, I find, in filmmaking, and there's a lot less, I don't know, but it also could be because I don't have as much experience in television, so to me it feels very comfortable to be on a film set versus TV, but I also really like TV, so, but film is my medium.
Was there a particular moment or role or a day on set where you realized that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life? This is not just something that I'm doing right now. This is something I want to keep doing.
I think when I was doing Ancillary Values, I was 12. We were on the Paramount lot, and it just felt really exciting and special. And there were shooting Coneheads right next door, and Star Trek Next Gen was shooting down on the other side, and it just felt like the most special thing ever to be there. And I remember saying, yeah, I think this is what I should do for the rest of my life.
And at that point, you were a part of things that you conceivably would have been a fan of if you weren't part of them.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can discount the influence playing someone like Wednesday has on a child. For each movie was 9 months or around there. So I think I can't say who I would have been without it in a way. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know if I would have actually been I probably would have been a fan now.
As you were, whether it was at that point in your career or later on, was there somebody who gave you a piece of advice or was a mentor in a particular project that really helped you unlock what it meant to sort of be able to do what you wanted to do?
No, not really. I don't even know that I really figured out ultimately what it is that I want to do in the business. I feel like there were a lot of really great examples of people who taught me little tricks and stuff along the way, and set behavior and etiquette and all those amazing things. And I think, I looked to a lot of great directors. I worked with Larry Sonnenfeld and all these and different people as real examples of what's possible. But I didn't have a mentor.
Yeah, and I think that's something that when we talk about acting or actors or the process, that's like set etiquette is something we kind of leave out of it.
And it's huge.
It's something that
it's really annoying when people don't know how to behave on set.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is huge. I know And there's so many things that you wouldn't think of. And being a kid on set, I was very quick to just be like, oh God, what am I supposed to do? Show me. So,
And I think that's, you know, for people who are performers at such a young age, there's just the expectation that they're gonna be there and show up and be professional. And I imagine that must have been a challenge, but also must have helped to sort of know from that young age, like this is how you handle yourself in a room of adults or your peers.
yeah, and I think also that attention to detail, that quality of child is what makes them capable. So I was always a very quiet child who kind of watched what was going on before I jumped in. And but yeah, so yeah, you're expected as a kid to come on set, and you're there to work.
And it seems like that's a great advantage for a performer and actor to be observant and to see
Yeah.
things in the world that you can then use as whatever character you're playing.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you said, you've gotten to work with a lot of great filmmakers, a lot of great creators. Were there ones that really? Because I think a lot of times you sort of have this idea of a director or a filmmaker as kind of like the grand schemer or you know, whatever the case may be. Were there filmmakers that really not only valued you for your performance and the talent you brought, but also like as a person that was able to really make a connection, able to make your job
Right. Yes and no. I mean, I really started very much I come to work and I'm there to do a job. I became, I don't know if this answers the question exactly, but I worked with Terry Gilliam, and watching him work was amazing to me. He is just such an artist in every single detail. And it was really amazing to work with a director like that. And he's one of my favorite filmmakers.
It sounds like we've got at least one fan. And I imagine that must be nice for you to come up, to show up on a set and to know that everybody is paying attention to those details. It's not being put all on you to fill in the gaps that you
Well, somebody who cares about all those details, values all of those details in film, and values the technicians involved and the talent it takes. So seeing that in a director means that you are also valued. You know, I don't really understand why people ever direct if they don't value every element that goes into making a film.
because it's so much work. Like, why would you not?
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, and for performers too, for that matter, like to really give of yourself to a performance really takes a lot, and so it seems like
Yeah.
it would be a waste of time to not.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned shooting Amsterdam on the Paramount lot. You've had the opportunity to work on a lot of studios and sound stages, but also you've been on projects where you've gone out and been on location, I imagine. Is there something different about working on a project where you're in that controlled environment versus one where you can kind of grab stuff from the atmosphere to kind of help inform?
I love working out a lot. I know that probably sounds silly, that you should love going out and being on location, but it feels really glamorous to be working on a movie studio lot. Like, it just feels like you're a real actress, really making movies.
It's like going to work in a museum.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's just sort of like the whole thing is very intoxicating.
Yeah, it's one of the cool things, like on a lot where you see just a list of everything that's shot there before. You can, like, I walked in the space that Fill in the Blank did back in 1954.
We were shooting at a studio. It's like this entire studio space. Something amazing was shot there.
And you've been able to work on a couple of projects that were very digital, that had there weren't a lot of like physical things for you to interact with. There was a lot of background screens and stuff. I imagine that's a challenge as an actress. But are there things that you were able to do to kind of help ground you when there's not a whole lot around you?
Well, when we did Stevens, it was, we were basically, you'd be in a giant green room and maybe someone bring in some chairs. And then they'd be like, so, you have to sit in the chairs, but there's a highway right there. 5 cars go this way, and somebody go, you just had to go with it and take cues, sound cues. But in that situation, you know, it's the shop teams, things kind of trust them, and do whatever they tell you to do. But it was interesting in that situation because there were usually a lot of actors in every scene, so it'd be all five of us, kind of just like, wait, where is the car supposed to be? What's that guy supposed to be bringing up? You know, and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun as well as being confusing.
And you have had that experience, having been performing as long as you have. I imagine you've seen the industry go through a lot of changes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular period of your career where you felt like the industry was really changing around you in a way that was surprising?
I mean, I'm always sort of, I don't know, maybe I'm not the most forward-thinking person, so I'm always surprised when things change.
Yeah.
And then, so I was sort of surprised, I mean, I guess I wasn't surprised by the whole thing that's happening now where everything is done. You know, they make so many less movies now, and they make, you know, it's all TV content. And for streaming, content for streaming, and stuff like that. So I guess that's a little bit different, but I don't feel like I was surprised by that in any way. So no, maybe I haven't been surprised.
Oh,
It's difficult to surprise me.
or maybe it's a pleasant surprise to be like, oh, this is.
Well, I'm excited about all the digital platforms and all the TV platforms that there are now, because it means that everybody gets to do, you know, there's so much more stuff to do. And there's always something interesting.
So you said that you really like filmmaking and the environment that has. As someone who did act in a TV show on a streaming service, was that close to the
Yeah,
style?
the way that we shoot TV nowadays is very similar in terms of just set, what happens on the set. And so there's other stuff about TV that's different. That's it.
Yeah. Everything that comes after.
And before.
And
like what's happening in offices while you're shooting on set, it's very different.
Yeah, it's a different world.
Yeah.
As far as sort of what you are able to do outside of acting and performing, is there a part of your life outside of acting that you really enjoy being able to do because of the success that you've had as a performer?
Yeah, I think that my producing career is only because of my ability to trade this commodity, trade myself. But yeah, definitely being able to actually create content is something that has come from there.
Is there, I mean, because when people talk about producing, it's such a kind of ambiguous thing.
Well, it is. There are so many different kinds of producers. For me, like Z is the show I joined on. It was a book. It was a book I read that I brought to Killer Films. They had never produced a television show, so they were excited to kind of do that, and then we took it to Amazon. And then I was very involved in development as much as I could be, given how differently TV does work. But yeah, so for me, producing is very much creating and being artistically involved in the content that I create, because otherwise I just don't do it.
Yeah. And with that comes the ability to bring in new voices and people that you respect and can kind of collaborate with.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that if I thought I had nothing to add, then I would not be doing this. But I do feel like there is a certain kind of content that we don't have yet, or a certain voice that isn't present yet, and I would like to, like, that's where my desire to be a part of it comes from.
And part of Z and something that you've done elsewhere is play real life individuals. Does that change how you go about thinking about a character, knowing that it's based on somebody who was actually living at one point, or
Well, yeah, you are beholden to some facts that people know. You're also beholden to the myths that people have created about those characters. It's important to address those things, I feel like, even within a performance. Even if it's not in the writing, I feel like the performance should address either myths that we think of the character or whatever. So, especially with Z, I had to incorporate that since it wasn't in the writing. in that there's no actual footage of Zelda, because my least favorite thing is to do an impression of somebody, and so that's what made me.
And it seems like it's not just for historical figures, but even, you know, if you look at the number of superhero movies we have now, like each of those performances are in some way kind of drafting off of things.
Yeah, and you have to be aware of what people love about a character or a person and what they might hate, and that's what I mean.
I've got a couple more questions, but I imagine there are people out there who also have some questions. So if you'd like to start lining up, we'll get that very, very shortly. Was there a particular project, and you mentioned Action, but is there a project where at the beginning you felt like you were just the most excited to, like, I'm very excited to see this? Not that the other ones weren't exciting, but like, is there one that had sort of a special idea?
Do you mean conceptually, I'm excited with the concept, or I'm excited about getting part and the whole project?
I guess either.
Either. I was really excited to work with the Japanese.
Yeah.
Really, really excited to work with them and have that experience. So that I was really excited about. Really different. And I don't know but I can't say anything specifically besides that. And, you know, like I say, Gilead, I mean, 12 Monkeys is one of my favorite movies of all time, so when I went to do that movie, I was really excited to be there.
I mean, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, just the projects that you've done that people kind of respond to. Has it been interesting to see people respond to those roles in different ways? I mean, I imagine that as sort of time passes, like those characters take on different things. It seems like Wednesday has now kind of become the face of a certain kind of attitude or
Yeah.
Yeah.
And first was, I really, so it was not right after Ashland. It was made after the Good Values, and then when I was a little bit older, probably around 55 time, doing press, I would get a lot of stuff from people, like, oh, you played that witch, or you were that witch. It's like, and this is before City College, so the whole storyline that did play, didn't play. And I think there was like an attitude still in that about like a year ago, or whatever. And now I'm older, and especially my years, and I was like, oh yeah, no. Like everyone kind of gets it, and I think it really was a decade of the vibe.
Yeah, I'll go back.
It's interesting, because the mainstream people were not mainstream, I don't mean that, but I mean like, I would go to like the NBC Movie Awards or like Music Awards or something, and there'd be like some drunk band member who, like from like a pop band who was like, you played that witch, who's that witch girl? And I just found so much music by it. And I don't get that now, so because that people have evolved.
If you did it now, it would be like more about like a band rock.
Well, it's not running again, because I was like, this is so idiot, but, you know, it happened a lot. It was really weird. It always struck me as like, it was kind of like a pop versus counterculture kind of thing that was happening. And now it seems like counterculture is a lot more pop. So, there we go.
One last question, and then we'll throw it over. I know some performers really like to like be voracious, like they watch everything and try to read as much as they can, and some kind of try and take a little bit more removed approach and sort of focus on individual projects rather than trying to bring in other stuff that's elsewhere.
Reading and sourcing,
Yeah.
trying to find new material.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read tons of them, and I read the journals and Asimov and Granta. I try to find things, you know, with like something else, really trying to find new stuff and stuff. The Z happened to be a bestseller, but it's probably what I'm going for.
Yeah, I think that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, and we're suffering so much, you know. We're looking for
Well, speaking of programming savvy. Let's see what kind of questions we have up here. I believe we have someone. Aw. Do you have a question?
Hi,
What's your name?
my name's Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
So like as well as like
My question is,
short and that was it.
was it fun and was it fun